Up next, Authentically Detroit sits down with Ryan Meyers-Johnson of Sidewalk Detroit and Halima Cassells to discuss Earth Futures, programming, and the 2024 Eco Artists in Residence at Eliza Howell Park. But first, this week's hot takes from Bridge Detroit. Detroit's Collard Green Cook-Off is back, and August 2024 primary, how Detroit voted. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyper-local perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit, by Detroiters, for Detroiters.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show. Hello, Detroit and the world. Welcome to another episode of Authentically Detroit, broadcasting live from Cass Corridor at the WDET studios. We are a content partner to bridgedetroit.com. I'm Orlando Bailey.
And I'm Donna Givens-Davidson.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. Happy Monday, everybody. It's been a Monday. It's been, Monday been Monday in.
Right.
As the kids likes to say. So today, interdisciplinary artist Halima Cassells and program director for Sidewalk Detroit and Ryan Meyers-Johnson, founder of Sidewalk Detroit, are here with us to discuss a collaborative art installation at Eliza Howell Park that teaches people about the impact of microplastics on the environment and the importance of sustainable practices for keeping our earth clean. Halima and Ryan, for the first time ever, we are saying welcome to Authentically Detroit.
Thank you so much for having us. We're so glad.
Happy to be here.
Good to see y'all. So how is this blessed and sunny day finding you down? First of all, I don't know what to wear no more because in the morning it's like 40 degrees. And then by the noon, it's 80. It's getting on my nerves.
The thing about Michigan weather is every year we are surprised by the same weather. It's like, oh, it's snowing outside. It's spring. It's up and down. And then, August always brings this real fluctuation in temperature. So, yeah, I struggle with it, too. I've gotten a little bit better at it. But I tell you, this weekend was so exciting.
What did you do?
Listen to the Olympics. I'm an Olympics person, right? I'm a track mom, okay? For 13 years, I was at track and field and all different kinds of activities. And so when track season is there, first of all, my son Philip was in Paris for part of the Olympics. Turns out my next door neighbor, Reggie Hartsfield's niece, is Anna Cockrell, who, if anybody watches the 400-meter hurdle, she got the surprise second place finish.
Let's go.
And beat Femke Bol when everybody thought Femke Bol was going to push up on Sydney McLaughlin-Lever. So obviously I know a lot about this. I could go on and
What's
on and
my
on.
man's that the youngest dude to run on the track?
Oh, Quincy Wilson.
Quincy 16 years old, got the gold.
He got the gold, but I'm telling you, hats off to the men's team for allowing him to run that race because we almost didn't get in the race. He was so slow. He was so overwhelmed by being there that he ran one of his slowest times in a long time, like 3 seconds slower than the last person. And it really was the rest of those men who caught them up. And then when they got done, they praised him and elevated him, didn't complain. They just celebrated him and said, you know what, we were happy.
Everybody from every country. I saw that.
Oh.
You know what I concluded over the weekend? That in LA in 2028, I think I'm good enough to be in the Olympics in the category of breakdancing because
please,
if that Australian lady can make it to the Olympics doing that breakdance, I'm going. I'm going.
You know what? That was an example of all the systemic things that we are trying to fight against. That level of mediocrity, absolutely not.
Goodness.
No.
It made me so angry. Not just her, because there were people who were better than she was, to be honest with you.
Exactly.
She got all zeros.
I mean, she got all zeros. There were people who were better than she was, but, you know, it just feels like they gentrified the sport. They gentrified something that very much started as a protest activity. And now they're talking about
from the Bronx,
the musicality. One of the categories was musicality. And it's like, okay, you guys have created these whole constructs around something, you know, because, you know, in my memory of breakdancing is in your face, okay? It was very... You know, there's a lot of swagger that went along with it, and a lot of moves that were very much part of our culture. And the person who won on the men's side, and I just watched a little bit because I'm always curious, was like the least impressive. He was going up against a black man who was really doing it. And I was like, this is the problem with things like that, is that somehow they recategorize what makes something good to the point where black people no longer qualify as the experts in something that we created. And so ultimately that's what made me angry. And it actually took me on this deep dive where I was watching all of these dancing videos. Seriously, I was watching down a rabbit hole. I was watching breakdancing videos, and I saw some breakdancers talking about the moonwalk. You know, the moonwalk was not created by Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
It was created by breakdancers or really popularized by breakdancers. And so it's no longer part of the competition. I guess it's not musical enough for them. And I know that art evolves, but it feels like they took street art and turned it into something else. And the final thing, because of the kind of person I am, I did a little Googling and I learned that it's a university course. There are whole degrees that you can get in breakdancing in parts of Asia and Europe. I don't know of any college or university in the United States that's teaching breakdancing. So again, it's been owned and domesticated and turned into something new. And it just doesn't feel like us in the way that it did.
You know, the mediocrity that you talk about, Ryan, was on display for me some months ago when, I don't know if you all will remember that when Say the Last Dance came out with Julia Stiles and Sean Patrick Thomas. And they had us rooting for Julia Stiles to get in Juilliard. I don't know if y'all remember the movie.
I remember the movie.
And she did like this routine. And we were like rooting, like, oh yeah, she killed it. And then a black woman did a side-by-side of the routine doing the exact same moves, showing us just how basic and mediocre these moves were. And it sort of reminded me of that. For all the things that you said, for all the things that is wrong and endemic in this country from the root, and all of colonialism around the world, that was just a full-on display of it. But on the other side, I did I ain't gonna lie, I chuckled a little bit watching that. It was just,
I mean, I had laughs. I think it was definitely good for a laugh. But when you start to uncover that this person has a PhD,
a professor,
and you know, just the way that she got into it, you know, it's sad because of all the things that you said, Donna, you know, that this is a really rich cultural legacy that we have here.
It is.
There's one thing to kind of think about the sport and the athleticism behind it, but I think it's an entirely different set of problematic issues when you have someone, an academic, who tries to use those credentials to step over people who maybe have taken the form to a different level with the athleticism, but maybe put in the work, understand the elements, you know, as opposed to, you know, trying to sort of break through nepotism.
This really started on the streets of Brooklyn. And African Bambaataa was the person who started breakdancing, right? And so you have something that starts on the streets of Brooklyn. And at that time, Brooklyn did not look like it does now.
Some New Yorkers might disagree.
Okay, where did they say it started?
I think it was the Bronx.
Okay, in the Bronx. You're right.
Okay,
okay, the wrong B. Okay, you're right. Don't let me get it wrong. In the streets of the Bronx, which do not look now like they did then.
Yeah.
at a time when there was so much brokenness and so much forgotten. Remember, New York was Detroit before Detroit was Detroit. New York almost went bankrupt because of the amount of, lack of investment, the blight, the buildings that were falling apart and the brokenness on the streets. And this is where these kids lived. They lived in places that were so disinvested in. And this was a form of protest. It was a form of growing together. It was a form of creativity. Nobody was learning this in college. People were teaching each other and teaching themselves these amazing moves that could rival any gymnastics. And I think you can't take that out of it. I think that when you take that out of it, when you take out the reality of how this art came from, then you end up with something that is sanitized. It's good, it's skillful, but it's not really coming from the same place and the same heart. And the people who created that no longer qualify to perform it at an elite level, because those people have not gone to college and learned some of these other moves and incorporated other ballet. They have not taken these classes. And so to me, it's like, do you still qualify? It's like when people say that Eminem is the greatest rapper who ever lived. And there are people who say that. Michael Harriot, who I follow on Twitter, said that. There's a whole.
I haven't heard a Detroiter say that.
They don't say that in Detroit. I'm saying there are demographics of people, and I'm not going to name them, who say that he's the greatest lyricist and the greatest rapper.
He's pretty good.
He is. Michael Harriot said that breakdancing at the Olympics looks like Eminem sounds to me, and that's probably the best description of it.
But you want to know something? You know what cannot be gentrified? Collard greens. Detroit's collard green cook-off is back. 6 Detroit chefs next week will prepare hundreds of pounds of collard greens in a battle for top honors at the 2nd annual collard green cook-off. The free public event created by community media group Detroit is Different is back and bigger by demand, with a playoff round and 150 pounds more greens, according to the event founder, Kyrie Frazier. We love Kyrie here. The annual event was created to gather community and celebrate the cultural importance of collard greens for many Black communities. Chef Buddha Calhoun won the taste buds of hundreds of attendees last year's events with his pan-fried vegan greens. This year, he will compete to defend his title, but with a different recipe. Frazier said the event will be bigger due to demand from people asking to compete and the turnout last year. Kyrie also held a preliminary competition or playoffs ahead of this year's cook-off to give more chefs an opportunity to participate. Earlier this summer, 9 chefs competed in the playoffs and 5 chefs came out victorious: Talani Anthony, Harriet Brown, Sean Brumfield, Jasmine Jones, and Mo Vito. Those chefs will go up against Calhoun. The chefs will cook up to 350 pounds of collard greens sourced from D-Town Farms, Oakland Avenue Urban Farms, Liberated Farms, Green Thumb, and Urban Youth Agriculture Farm. Competition will be judged by co-owner of Good Cakes and Bakes, April Morton, comedian Howie Bell, founder of In the Business of Food, Idrit Gode, and vice president of Bill Institute, Aisha Tillman. The public will also have a vote. The 3-hour competition runs from 4 to 7 p.m. August 15th at the Joseph Walker Williams Recreation Center on Rosa Parks Boulevard. So I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to attend the Collard Green Cook-Off last year. And let me tell you, it was, in addition to the food, it was a pure celebration that spilled out into the streets of just us being Black and being great and enjoying some good food. It was a time. Luther Keefe, y'all know Luther Keefe, Arise Detroit, famed journalist, actually in the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame, was on the stage entertaining everybody. It felt like a family reunion. It was so great. I can't wait.
I've heard there's another judge. His name is what is it? Orlando Bailey.
I don't know why. I don't know how. But I will certainly be there, and with I'll bring the fun, hopefully.
I wish they just said Orlando Bailey Prince Eastside, which is your new name.
We can thank Drake Pfeiffer for that name.
We will.
But no, guys, if you're looking for something really fun to do, it's happening this Thursday. It's April 15th from 4 to 7 p.m. It's free. Come on out. It's going to be at the Joseph Walker Williams Recreation Center. And shout out to our brother in the podcasting space, Kari Frazier, whom we love and adore. We do Playlist Live every first Wednesday at Bricks Wine with Kari. Kari's an amazing partner. Yeah.
We're probably going to change the date, right?
Yeah, we will be changing because, I don't know if y'all know that Donna is a professor at Columbia University.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if y'all knew that, but, talking about fancy.
Well, I'm not fancy enough to judge collard greens, however.
Professor Givens Davidson.
Something to aspire to.
How about that? All right, y'all. The August 2024 primary, how Detroit voted. Detroit held its August primary election last Tuesday ahead of Thursday's visits from Vice President Kamala Harris and Republican Vice Presidential hopeful J.D. Vance. The competition will be judged by, what is this? Wait.
Oh, it's a mistake.
It's a mistake.
Can we judge that competition?
We can judge that competition. Detroit business, we will judge it. We will vote.
Yes, that's true.
Detroit businessman and actor Hill Harper earned more votes in Detroit than his Democratic opponent in the U.S. Senate primary, but Harper lost the statewide races to U.S. Representative Eliza Slotkin, a Democrat out of Holly. The two contests are among many differences, some subtle and others drastic in how Detroiters cast ballots for races that included people outside the city. Detroit turnout in the Tuesday election was 16% according to the unofficial election day results, slightly behind Wayne County's 19% turnout. The city's turnout landed within Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey's projection of 15 to 18%. Sri Tanadar beat Mary Waters by 2 percentage points in Detroit, while attorney Shakira Hawkins finished in a distant third place. The 13th district also includes Wayne County communities to the southwest and east of Detroit. Across the district, Sri Tanadar beat Waters by 20 percentage points. Most of Waters' votes, 71%, came from Detroit. Less than half of Tanadar's votes came from the city. Tanadar earned 42,786 votes across the 13 districts, securing 54% of the vote, while Waters earned 34% and Hawkins earned 11%. Sri Tanadar will face Republican Martell Bivings, who continues to grab that nomination every time in November, who ran uncontested in the GOP primary. Bivings earned 12,759 votes, and only 8% came from Detroiters. I'm sorry. The district is strongly Democratic, and Tanadar is likely to win re-election. U.S. Representative Rashida Tlaib, a Democrat out of Dearborn, represents the west side of the city and is Palestinian American. She ran unopposed in the 12th District Democratic primary and will face Republican James Hooper, who beat Linda Sawyer. The Democratic U.S. Senate primary ended in defeat for Harper, a Detroit native who, he is not a Detroit native, but a Detroiter who set up his campaign headquarters on Livernois Avenue. Slotkin secured the Democratic nomination with 76% of the statewide vote. Donna, what say you? I need some clean. Can you grab me some Kleenex over here?
I have so many
or a
things.
Piece of paper towel. I am crying right now.
I have so many things to say. One of the things that I'd like to say is that Detroit Black people have got to learn how to run in our district and not just in our city. There are some issues, and we'll be talking about some soon with Sidewalk Detroit. I'm really excited, that resonate across districts. When you start talking about environmental justice, when you start talking about issues around climate sustainability, those are issues that can resonate. When you talk about addressing housing, or when you talk about issues that are cross-cutting issues, that's great. But you cannot run identity campaigns in 2024 and expect to win. And I'm saying,
you can't be on the steps doing the blade at the where were they at the DIA? You can't do that.
Well,
No?
you can,
okay.
you can, but you
I
will
thought
not
you
win.
could.
You will
I
not
thought you
win.
could.
The thing about, and I really did like Hill Harper. I actually went to see him. I really liked him a lot.
Yeah.
But the thing I'll say about Hill Harper is, first you crawl, then you walk, then you run. He went straight from, not running for elective office to running for a statewide office without having any real experience under his belt as a political representative to speak to. And so a lot of voters mistrusted him and considered him to be a carpetbagger. Now, if you listen to him, some of his stuff sounded good. Alyssa Slotkin, on the other hand, built relationships in the community such that she got endorsements despite her commercials, which were inane to me. Like, I'm a member of the CIA and 9/11. It's like there's absolutely nothing she said that resonates with Detroit. But she does. She people trusted her. I don't understand why, but people did trust her because I feel as though a candidate who's running so moderate, she could have been Joe Manchin. She could have been anybody who runs as a Democrat and then kind of moves away from that once they get in office, when she says things like, I'm tired of partisanship. And so partisanship is just, I'm tired of people having opinions on either side.
And only Democrats have that line. Republicans do not. Yeah.
And when Democrats have that line, usually what it means is, I'm going to try to accommodate this other party. Yeah. That's been my experience. So I was bothered by that, but I also feel as though we have to do a better job preparing candidates to run across our district. We've talked about this before. There's issues that are cross-cutting issues that voters really care about. And those politicians who really know how to do it are able to win votes elsewhere, because Sri Thanedar is one of the most unpopular politicians I've ever seen. People voted for him, but I was at the Harris Walls, thing on last Monday, or was it Monday, whatever, last week. I was there. And we had many speakers. It was, it was like, as I told you, like the Freedom Fund dinner without chairs or food. So it was a long day. My feet were hurting. But when he spoke, he got no applause from anybody. And the people there were not primarily Detroit. You had a lot of people who were from Metro Detroit. He just doesn't have the kind of charisma. People voted for him almost because he didn't have any real competition. They were able to point out that Mary Waters has had some things in her past which will make people outside of Detroit mistrust her even more than Detroiters do. And it really harmed her. But she also, again, did not run an issue-laden campaign. And if the issues were there, I just wasn't hearing them. What do you all think? I'm curious.
I definitely didn't hear. I am amazed at Martell Bivens. I am.
Why?
I am amazed because of his consistency, right? He continues to run. Mm-hmm. He believes in whatever his cause is that he hasn't been able to articulate.
Remember
right?
when he? We had the debate with him and Reverend Joan Ross about Proposal A and Proposal B, the community benefits ordinance.
Yeah, when he was working for Councilman Scott Benson.
And he was wearing that shiny student. And so half of the people were laughing at his clothing. Yeah. And the other half were laughing because she just really was just making him look foolish. We were laughing so hard.
But I do think it's something to be said around. I mean, there's a Black Republican out of Michigan in the House, James, what's his name?
Mm-hmm. John
James. And Martell Bivens is on the ballot again. I think there is something to be said around the Republican Party figuring out how to build these inroads and relationships with Black men and figuring out how to get them elected. I'm not necessarily sure Martell Bivens won't figure out a way to get into Congress.
He needs to move somewhere else.
Somebody might find him.
He can't be in Congress in Detroit. John James did not win in Detroit.
Yeah, he couldn't win in Detroit. Yeah.
These people are winning because they're the kind of Black people white people like. I can vote for you. You'll mimic the racist talking points, and I don't have to feel racist by agreeing with you. I mean, that is the ideal kind of setting to me. I think that.
Well, I'm personally excited about my sister, Tanya Myers-Phillips,
yes!
who won in District 7, which goes through Detroit, Highland Park, and Hamtramck. A Black woman from Detroit that inspires me. So
we love Tanya.
And she's a
right
Black
to counsel
woman
Tanya.
Y'all
know Tanya.
And of course, I supported her. And of course, she's able to run outside of her district. What's his name? Donovan
McKinney.
McKinney was able to do that. Mm-hmm. To some extent, Joe Tate was able to do that. Love him or like him, Joe Tate was able to do that. Donovan McKinney runs a progressive campaign. When you have people who run for something and stand for something and have a track record, those are the ones whose candidacies cross, these boundaries, these political boundaries. But when you have people running on name recognition or who my family is, I don't think it sells outside of our boundaries.
We got to take a quick break. Okay. We will be right back.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the Neighborhood Tech Hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Welcome back to Authentically Detroit. Sidewalk Detroit is an organization working at the intersection of spatial equity, environmental justice, public art, community building, and placekeeping. This spring, they announced Detroit-based artist Halima Cassells as the 2024 Eco Artist in Residence at Eliza Howell Park, part of Earth Futures, a public art initiative and artist in residence program in Detroit, covering issues of climate crisis such as air quality and water pollution through the lens of spatial equity and public art. The residency kicked off on April 20th with a river cleanup event at the park where participants joined forces to rescue materials from the Rouge River, embarking on the start of turning trash into treasure for the newest upcycle art installation at the park. Throughout the residency, Halima led 3 workshops that allow individuals to contribute to the creation of the installation using the collected materials. During those workshops, the Ecology Center provided insights into the impact of microplastics on the environment and the importance of sustainable practices for keeping our earth clean. So we're super excited to have Ryan Meyers-Johnson and Halima here in the studio with us today. It's your first time here. We're honored that you guys are here. Can you talk a little bit about the impetus behind Earth Futures and erecting such a program, Ryan?
Yeah, thanks. I'm super excited to be here and excited to talk about Earth Futures. So there's so much to say, but basically Sidewalk Detroit, we're looking at how do we make our public spaces more just, more beautiful, and just a more wonderful experience. So that's what we mean by spatial equity. How do we look at thinking about spatial trauma, repairing harm to some of our public spaces, and just working with residents to restore joy and community in some of these places that have been harmed by disinvestment, by climate issues, many things. And Earth Futures is really looking at our work in Eliza Howell Park, pairing artists together with residents to think about spatial solutions. So for me, I'm an artist. My background is in dance, but I love nature. I've been, I guess, a tree hugger, green person for all my life, thanks to many summer trips down south and a mom who took us out into the green space. And, you know, we love Eliza Howell Park. We've been working in the park since around 2016 to uplift the park, to address stormwater issues, issues of invasive species, improve wayfinding, and really work together with residents to see their vision come to fruition. But we're artists, and so how do we also unlock some of the beauty and the magic of that space with art? And so that's where Earth Futures really came from, thinking about working together with artists and residents to reimagine how we experience our space. And is there a way that we can introduce healing actions so that the art is not only something that's beautiful to look at, but it's something that means something, it's functional, and it says something directly that affects community members. So we were super excited to work with Halima on addressing issues of water quality, issues of pollution, and just general engagement at the park.
I'm really excited by the intersection of arts and nature. My mother was an artist, and she absolutely loved trees. She loved nature, and she embedded that in all of her children. My husband is an artist, and he, you know, very much like my mother, loves nature and loves trees. And I see that in many artists. But Halima, you are a mixed media artist, which you make that part of, that's like your primary art form, isn't it? To look at things through those lenses.
I'm so nervous, y'all. I'm so sorry.
Don't be nervous.
Say something about the
Amazing.
microphone.
Yeah, I know.
Don't be nervous.
So I think of myself as an interdisciplinary artist.
Interdisciplinary, yeah.
I use a lot of different modes in media and continue to want to learn and experiment for my own growth, but just, with other people in relationship to other people. And so, I've been an artist my whole life, but I was encouraged by my parents, my larger, family, community. We would always, walk through Heidelberg or go to the DIA or, make something like an art moment, find, and it's not hard to find around Detroit. So, I look at the environment as something that I'm a part of. It's natural, and some parts of it are man-made, but it's all the things that we're surrounded by, swimming in, using, and we can't really separate ourselves from it. So
I think that's beautiful, though. I think that is a lot different than what a lot of people think of when they think of public art, which is sort of superimposing this sculpture or this other thing on this environment, but not really seeing the environment as part of the artistic, display. And I think that that's something also that I think other cultures do better than the U.S., where we look at things in silos. Would you agree with that? And can you give examples of the way you have made that work inside of Eliza Howell Park?
Okay, sure. I definitely agree with you in terms of the fragmented thinking, the silos, and removing people's expertise and then, making a thing inaccessible to the people who created it. So I really do appreciate, my parents, my teachers asking, what do you think the artist was saying? Why do you think they were choosing to do this? What does this say to you? And let's go talk to them, or let's read something that they wrote so that we have an understanding of the context. And I feel I think Sidewalk Detroit, I love working with Sidewalk because they elevate residents as experts in their own neighborhood. So it's we value you. What do we need here? What can we do? What can we build? What would you come to? So I think, partly that's, one reason why I'm excited to work with Sidewalk and have over the years. But in terms of this particular piece, we decided to, say, okay, what can we continue to improve in Eliza Howell Park? And, Friends of the Rouge, Ecology Center, other folks were like, okay, let's look at this log jam, which is a naturally occurring feature of the river, of a natural habitat, and let's try to get, all of the debris out of it. So I was so happy. So many people came, and it was snowing.
Oh, my
goodness. It was snowing on April 20th.
Oh,
it was incredibly cold. People got into the water, this icy cold, tall water, icy fingers to do this work. So.
Oh, my goodness.
So appreciative.
Yeah. One of the things that stood out to me in your opening, Ryan, is how these kinds of installations, and not just the installation, but the process by which the installations are erected, are an antidote for, you said, spatial trauma, right? And that can also spur healing and oneness in spaces that have been divested in. Can you say more about that?
Yes. So a lot of our work revolves around the concept of spatial trauma, that it is a thing, basically.
Yeah, because I've never heard that term, and I'm digging it. Yeah.
Well, so we did 2 artist residencies this year for our Eco Artists in Residency program, one at Eliza Howell Park and then one in East Canfield on the east side, one addressing water quality and the other addressing air quality. Both of these neighborhoods experienced what we call spatial trauma because of disinvestment and because of systemic racism, environmental systemic racism. So Detroit's combined CSO system pollutes our Rouge River to a very
sewer system, alphabet. I'm just
So basically our sewer and our water, flow together. And so it's created, quite a lot of environmental hazards within the river. So this natural, beautiful resource that exists in Eliza Howell Park, which is the convergence of the upper and lower Rouge River. It's an important migratory pathway for birds. It's a lush environment where you'll find coyote, deer, many, many different bird species, turtles, snakes. It's just this wonderful place, experiences these high levels of pollution. With Brightmoor also being in a floodplain, the Rouge River rises many times of the year. So you have water on the pathway in people's backyards. So what should be a pure and natural resource that people can fish in, that people can kayak and swim in, is inaccessible to us because of systemic racism, because of the way that our sewage system works here in Detroit. And the same with East Canfield, that installation.
Shout out to the Thea sisters.
Shout out to the Thea sisters. Yes, we were so excited for them to bring us on to work with another artist, Jordan Weber, to address issues of air quality. Their proximity to the Stellantis plant has caused elevated issues with air quality within the neighborhood, which causes an abundance of health problems. Yeah, so there are many, many experts and lots of things that you can look at. Our role as artists, though, were to think about what can we do together with artists to address and call attention to these issues, but also give residents tools on how to deal with this trauma that they're living with, because these are decades-long issues that aren't going to necessarily be solved by our artist residency. But how can we not only bring joy to the landscape where people are experiencing fear or physical pain or trauma just from looking at what they have to deal with. So that's where the beauty of the art comes in. But as Halima talked about, we want to work together with residents to co-vision what that is, but also to learn, to get education about what's in the water. So that's where Ecology Center came in, working together with Halima. So every time we had a class or a cleanup, Ecology Center was there taking water samples and explaining different things about what we were finding in the water to community members, where they could look under a microscope and learn about that. Also learning about the issue of microplastics and littering and things that we can do. I could go on and on. But yeah, basically we're thinking about healing spatial trauma from an infrastructure lens. So we also do infrastructure work in Eliza Howell Park, focusing on green infrastructure, stormwater management, wayfinding, and overall care of the park. But we also want to activate the park and beautify it with art that community members love and support.
Yeah, so I worked, as I mentioned to you, at the Brightmoor Community Center many years ago, actually, probably about 12 years ago now. And when I was there, one thing I noticed was it was really hard to even get into Eliza Howell Park at one point. You had to sort of walk through some brush, and there were some tours there. But it also felt as though inside of the Brightmoor community, there were some people who were really engaged in that kind of nature-based solutions and other people who were very cut off. How do you engage more disengaged residents of Brightmoor? Because it felt at that time as though many of the Black residents who lived in farther away from the park did not have the same connection to nature. And some of the newer people who had moved in, like Neighbors Building Brightmoor, you know what I'm talking about, and they sort of created this this narrative around it, but it almost felt displacing to some residents in hearing from them. It sounds like you have reconnected more residents with this work. Can you talk about some of the social dynamics there?
Yeah, so one of our goals in Eliza Howell Park is specifically reaching young people, Black and brown families in the community. I got into the work from living in Brightmoor and living across from the park, so it was within my eyesight. And I did definitely notice that dynamic. There are folks who, are running barefoot through the forest and they love it just as it is. Don't change anything. We love our wild, secret Eliza Howell. And there were also people who are afraid of the animals. There are coyote there and snakes there, which, you're looking out for them. No poisonous snakes in case anybody is on our nature trail. But we thought, how do we start to address some of this? And I want to say, too, that this legacy of loving nature is, to me, a Black legacy.
Absolutely.
Most of my friends, and of course this is not everybody, but I'm a first generation Detroiter, being first generation born here. My mom and dad came up from the South, and a great deal of my friends have parents that came up from the South. So I spent my summers going back to my grandparents' farms. So that legacy of nature, of being immersed in nature, of gardening
The
and such.
land.
That is a Detroit legacy. That is a Black legacy.
It's a forgotten legacy.
And
that
so
we need
how
to
do we
relearn.
reactivate that? And how do we
Exactly.
also create a public space that does feel safe? Because it's true that there were murders in Eliza Howell Park. There was trafficking. There was drug use. These are also traumas. And legacy residents who have been here for 20, 30 years know that there was maybe a body found in the lake. Whereas, okay, you just came here 5 years ago and you just see the wildflowers. So they haven't experienced the trauma in the same way. So we try to approach without judgment when we hear a story, oh, you guys are in Eliza Howell Park, whoa, because maybe they remember when some crime happened there. That is real. And you know what? We do need to be safe and think about that and think about holistically. So that's why we also bring art. That's why we also do programming like Yoga in the Park, why we also do, our festivals and programming specifically for kids to try to rewrite that narrative. And then there were just infrastructure things that I learned from talking with residents that have to come first. So before we really did any artwork, we started thinking about what about advocating for road repair. And the reason why we do so much stormwater management is because of the flooding. Mm-hmm. There were many times in the year where the road was not passable. And you, being a longtime resident, this is a combined sewer system. So, of course, I'm not going to wade in that water.
I do want to clarify. I do want to clarify
I have to take a break.
that all of Detroit, I'm going to talk about combined sewer systems because that's not just there.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah,
We
so
will
we'll talk
explore
about
it
that.
when we come back. We're going to take our last break of the show.
Great.
Stay tuned.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the Neighborhood Tech Hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyper-local perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit, by Detroiters, for Detroiters.
All right, welcome back to Authentically Detroit. Donna, what say you?
I just wanted to point out that, all of Detroit is a combined sewer system at this point, and most, Rust Belt cities have been combined sewer systems. And that's where the stormwater and the sewage water goes into one place. The problem is not just with those systems, though. The problem is with those systems combined with a lack of maintenance and repair of the pipes underground so that you do have the flooding. The problems are the clogged drains and other things that don't get repaired in some neighborhoods as quickly as in others, so that you have flooding happening in different places. Like, there's so many places throughout the city. I believe Philadelphia has disconnected their stormwater and their sewage systems. Grosse Pointe Park disconnected their stormwater and their sewer systems, and it would cost billions of dollars. But the question is, what do you do in the meantime? And the underinvestment in both the great infrastructure and the green infrastructure across the city has released so much flooding and so many problems. With 38,000 people flooded, I think, in July of 2021. Mm-hmm. And whole neighborhoods were underwater. We talked about this, Jeff Chalmers, but also East English Village. Also, what is the name of the community? Chandler Park, Warrendale, all over the city. And it's like at some point, we've got to treat this stuff like it's serious. And the other thing is that we don't just manage our own sewer water or combined sewer water. All of the northern suburbs have pipes that drain into our systems. And so in a heavy rain day, you're not just dealing with your local rain, you're dealing with northern suburbs rain. On the east side, it is the Oakland-Macomb connector that's just bringing water, piling into our systems. On the east side, it's to the Conner Creek pumping station and the Fruit pumping station. And the stations themselves are underinvested and become overwhelmed. And we have to deal with the mess. And these other communities have laws and policies that disallow their stormwater from being contained or detained in their communities. It's not allowable for you to detain it.
And, I think that is another systemic racism.
Exactly.
A policy based in systemic racism.
Exactly.
And the fact that we're charged, retail rates where 125 other municipalities that are using our system and are using it extensively, like you say, are paying half of what Detroiters are paying, and our basements are flooding.
And our basements are flooding. And the stormwater drainage fees, I have to remember the exact formula. I think it's 82% of stormwater drainage fees are charged to Detroiters, right? Think about it like this. Earlier we were talking about the elections, and we pointed out Detroit does not have a large enough population base to elect people to a lot of these offices because there's just not enough Detroiters right now to cover that. But Detroiters are still responsible for 82% of the stormwater drainage fees charged by CLEWA. How does that make sense? And so our bills are like 3-4 times as high as suburban bills. And, the investment isn't there, the protection isn't there. Those are structural issues. And so even as you're dealing with that, I'm on the other side of ECN, like looking at the policy and how do we, we need a watershed management plan. And we do have somebody working on watershed management planning. We're working with Wayne State University on that issue. When you talk about the air quality at East Canfield, and Stellantis, it's not just that Stellantis is spewing out all this pollution, right? There was a vegetative buffer between Stellantis and the community. It was called the Conner Creek Greenway. There were berms and there were trees.
I remember when St. Jean was open. It's not anymore.
From St. Jean, from Kercheval to Warren, that was called there was a buffer, and it was actually built as a buffer to buffer pollution coming from those plants. The zoning for that buffer was M2, which was buffer. It's a kind of buffering industrial zoning. The zoning for the plants is M4, which is intensive industrial. And they say, well, this can't happen adjacent to residential neighborhoods. When the city allowed for the expansion of the plants and gave Stellantis that property, the city also had that area rezoned intensive industrial, which is actually in violation of the spirit of the code, which says it cannot be next to residential, bringing it right next to residential. There's a school right there, as you know, Colin Powell Academy. There's a school, Southeastern, the Enterprise School. I can't remember the name of that school, but there's another one right there. They brought it in close proximity to schools. And so what you're doing, I think, also helps to elevate consciousness around that. Because, we can have these meetings and talk about this, but I think when you actually do these water improvement plans, it seems to me what you're doing is you are creating ways for people to know this. Without getting into the science, right?
And ways for people to ask questions, especially young people. One of the conversations that really blew me away while we were cleaning out, we put about 60 bags of mostly plastic. And one of the young people was like, there's not too many, there's a lot less beer cans and pop cans, and I think because there's a 10-cent deposit on them. What if there was a 10-cent deposit on water bottles? And then somebody said, but when you get sparkling water, it is. So there are so many arbitrary rules and laws and policies and things that people are just go about their daily life thinking. But when you get the chance to say, hey, wait a minute, why don't we put it on this too? And maybe that would stop, at least some of this downstream pollution.
Can you imagine how much people would make after a sporting event? Like after track, you have a whole sea of water bottles. And, if you had a 10-cent deposit, people would be there cleaning up those water bottles and making money. That's a really good point.
Right.
Yes.
And that is part of the expertise that the project seeks to amplify and uplift. How else are you guys honoring community expertise? I'm looking at you, Halima, because you're the artist. You are in relationship. You are in conversation with these residents, with the young people. What other themes are coming up, and how are you honoring that?
Other things that are coming up is, how do we enjoy our Detroit? How do we have spaces where we feel safe to play, to do things? And I'm leaning into that with my children, like presently this summer. What are some other spaces in Detroit that we can go and explore And also just what are, kind of following the lead of young people. What are you interested in? What can we make together? The sculptural piece that we made for this project included making a bunch of thousands of small flowers. So imagine turning water bottles or cans, pieces of plastic into flowers. So we had over 100 people's hands as a part of the project.
Wow.
And then they were arranged as kind of like a rainbow ombre.
Wow, we got to go see this.
So,
It's a beautiful archway that leads to the river.
And it leads to the river.
We've done some of that infrastructure work and putting in accessible pathways so that, as you mentioned, there was a time when Eliza Howell Park is kind of difficult to get to. It really is more like a nature preserve. So you've got 250 acres of just lush green space, wildflower, prairie, hardwood forest, and then this beautiful river. And so the pathway that leads to the river, how do we create a more welcoming and opening place that invites kids and folks to come back? And it really is this beautiful rainbow ombre archway that Halima made literally together with residents out of the trash that was extracted from the river. And when we had that opening, one of the most beautiful things to me, Halima, was just the amount of kids that were just running free.
They all disappeared. We were doing an artist talk, and we were like, wait a minute, they're at the river.
They're in the river. They're in the wildflowers. They were just loving it. And this is the story that we want to have for the kids of the neighborhood and for the kids of Detroit, that this lush, beautiful green space is your space.
It's yours.
Exactly.
Can you talk about whether there are any more activations planned between now and to the time it get too cold to where people don't want to be outside no more? What do y'all do?
Well, we do work during the winter as well.
I know
Eliza
you do.
Howell Park.
I know you do.
Well, so you should definitely go and enjoy Eliza Howell Park's nature paths. We have about 1.5 miles that you can enjoy. Well, 1 mile within the hardwood forest and then another mile loop within the open spaces of the park. So you can get a nice hike, experiencing the wildflower meadow, the hardwood forest, the river. So when you go into Eliza Howell Park, you'll say, oh, there's nothing like it here. Am I even in Detroit? Of course you are in Detroit. This is our legacy. But so at any point, you can go and see some of the art installations we have. Alima's is our newest. We also have an amazing work, the stick work sculpture, which was created a couple of years ago at the beginning of our residency program at Eliza Howell Park. It's a beautiful sculpture made of sticks. That's a house you can go in. And then we have coming up, hopefully, a camp out in Eliza Howell Park. So stay tuned.
Ooh,
if you want to have an urban camping experience. Sleeping with the beautiful harmless gardener snakes. I mention them a lot. I'm sorry, I'm a snake lover. But I feel like this is such a great legacy. It's a sign of the health of the park.
Yeah,
when we see these
when
things.
you see it. When you see the nature,
How do you avoid them, though? Because
No, they'll avoid you.
I saw one while I was working, and I was like, oh. And my youngest, who's 6, was there. And she's like, Mommy, a snake. And I was like, yeah, but he's harmless. And then she was like, well, can I pet it? I was like, no, but, let's go see. As soon as we got 3 feet, 4 feet, he just kind of went away. And, it was sweet that she wasn't afraid,
That's so nice.
Yes, it is.
That's so great.
So there are plenty of places for those who don't want to see snakes. You probably won't see one.
For those of us who are afraid of earthworms, I've always had that
Are
fear.
you? Oh my God! I'm
It's
the guy that will pick one up and put it and chase you with it.
If you chase me with it, seriously, I become violent. My sisters used to do that. I have a true phobia to earthworms. It's not, it was, someone tried to hit me and I picked up my shoe and I just started beating. No, don't ever try that because you'll see the other me. It's a true phobia.
So we won't catch you fishing.
You can catch me fishing
with different bait, different kind of bait.
I can
Someone
be
else
there.
put the
I actually went fishing with Kevin and our grandson, and I was just sitting there like this, and he wanted to chase me too. It's one of those fun things. I don't know what it is about boys or whatever, but no, it's not funny. No, but anyway, I'm just going back to the park. When I was growing up, my grandmother had a house in Idlewild, Michigan, and the woods was behind our house. We didn't live near the lake. We lived with the woods. And there are always garter snakes there, but I didn't have to get too close.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I suppose if for the snake lovers, you know how to walk up on them and see them. But what about the birds? I love birds.
Yeah, there's regular bird watching. So the Detroit Bird Society does regular bird watching events in Eliza Howell Park. We've got an
shout out to Bridge Detroit, who has covered that extensively.
Yes, Bridge Detroit. So we have an amazing naturalist in our community, Leonard Weber, who has a great blog. It's called the Eliza Howell Park Nature Walk. So if you just Google Eliza Howell Park Nature Walk, he's documenting every week these amazing birds that he's finding there. And then also, semi-aquatic animals like turtles and such. But also, I'm excited to say Leonard, in collaboration with Sidewalk Detroit and Detroit Parks Coalition, are creating a butterfly handbook for all of the butterflies that you can identify in Eliza Howell Park and in parks across the city. So there's many, many great resources. And then for those who just want to, enjoy the park a little easier, we also have our Songs of Freedom event coming up, where we'll have music and dance. I believe that's September 28th. That's with Detroit Parks Coalition. So just come out, hear some jazz, and, have a good time, that kind of event. So many different spaces in Eliza Howell Park. So if you don't want to get, deep into the forest and looking for birds, you can also, hang out near our sculptures and, just chill.
How does one access this park? How do you get there?
Eliza Howell is right off of Finkel and Telegraph. So there is construction going on Finkel. So use your GPS, people, but come in from Telegraph and go east on Finkel for those who.
It looks like you cannot go through, but you can.
For
It
you
literally looks like
for
it.
For you East Siders like me, pack a snack and your patience and drive on over there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a distance. Halima and Ryan, thank you so much for coming on
Thank
the pod.
you.
All right, if you have topics that you want discussed on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. All right, Donna, it is time for shout outs. You first. You got any shout outs?
Okay. I'm going to shout out all of the amazing athletes at the Olympics, but I especially want to shout out the team from, oh my goodness, I can't even remember the name of the country. I just felt like the diaspora was really represented in great ways.
Yeah.
Like Jamaica wasn't showing up in track, but you had people from all over the world.
Because we black all over the world.
Those Botswana men and the 4x4 did their thing. I was so excited. The young lady, Alfred from the island, Julian Alfred, I think is her name, and she won the 100. And she was phenomenal, okay? And she was from an island, St. Lucia. She was from St. Lucia. It's the first time St. Lucia's ever gotten a medal. It's the first time Botswana has ever gotten medals in these events. And then the young lady who won the 5,000, 10,000, and the marathon, who is from the Netherlands but was born in Ethiopia. Amazing athletes. I love seeing the world during it. So U.S. athletes, I love you too.
Shout out Steph Curry.
Steph Curry.
And that basketball team.
Oh my goodness, the basketball team.
Last 3 minutes, baby.
Yeah.
We did that.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And I mean, you can't talk about any of that without talking about Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. Yeah. She's amazing. And Gabby Thomas is amazing. Proud of them. But again,
Brittany
the diaspora
Griner was, everybody showed up. Halima, you got any shout outs?
Well, on that theme, Sha'Carri Richardson.
Yes.
And the young lady from Dominica who told everybody it wasn't Dominican Republic, it was Dominica, and it was their first gold medal ever.
Oh, she was so amazing too. Yes.
All right, Ryan, do you have any shout outs?
Do I need to shout out an athlete?
No. Anybody you want to shout out?
Okay, I'm just gonna shout out to the people of Brightmoor who have lifted up Sidewalk Detroit and enabled us to do this work and to be sitting here with you guys and the team at Sidewalk Detroit, who really worked together with Halima. And I guess I'll throw an athlete in there, Simone Biles. I just watched as a dancer. I just love the gymnast. So that's pretty much all I watched. So.
You know what, Ryan? You know what? I have a couple of shout outs, but I first want to shout out you. We met years ago, and I've shadowed your work for years and watched how you move and how you work in collaboration with communities to bring about something beautiful each time. I don't think we ring your name enough. I don't think we give you your flowers enough. I want to give you your flowers. This is amazing what you are doing and what you have been doing. Thank you for your work in the city of Detroit. Thank you for the Sidewalk Festival. Thank you for the artist installations. Thank you for the residencies. Thank you for amplifying resident experience as expertise.
Yes.
I
Wow.
absolutely,
Humbled and honored.
absolutely love it. Keep doing what you're doing. I want to shout out my little cousin who graduated from Michigan State. And she's a cousin related by love because our mothers are best friends. Alanya Jackson, shout out to you. She got a degree in kinesiology, y'all.
Nice.
She's gonna take a gap year, and then she's gonna go to grad school. She's thinking about public health, Donna. So I told her, hey, call me. I know some people. And shout out to my mom's other best friend, Bridget Stewart, who turned 50, and I was at the pool party in the backyard with all the aunties and uncles, and then how about they called on Prince Eastside to DJ at the last minute, so I was in there with the playlist getting it going for them, making them turn up. So it was a fun weekend. I had a great weekend with Mom, and so shout out to Mama. Love y'all. All right, y'all, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for listening. Remember to love on somebody and allow yourself to be loved on. Peace.